I'm excited to talk to you because you're one of the few people that everybody flags a post once in a while, but way back I flagged you on a post.
Oh yeah.
I looked at your blog, but sometimes the approving posts can be a real nauseating task, but it forces me to get to know you better, and you've really grown your following since then.
hmm
I've really grown, and all of these groups are getting astronomically huge. So don't tell me this is a rare thing.
I'll just tell you. So here's my story. I tell it a lot, but I did fertility treatments. I have polycystic ovary disease and was ready to have kids and had been to like 8 doctors, and none of the doctors could figure out what was wrong with me. And the gaslighting really started for me then.
Yeah,
I remember going to one doctor and they were so condescending to me. They were like already about my age, right?
yeah.
And she says, "Oh, honey, just go home and prop yourself up on some pillows and drink water from a pretty glass and it'll happen." Like there was no exam or anything with
No.
that lady. So finally, I go to this
And this
fertility.
was in your local area?
Yeah, and I was living in Washington State at the time.
Okay.
So I moved back home to Oklahoma and found this Bennett Fertility Center that's right down the street from me. And the doctor took one look at me and he was like, "You have polycystic ovary disease. I know it." And he said, "I'll have you pregnant in the first couple of months." So he did
Wow.
a surgery to like kind of drill out those ovarian cysts that had built up and stuff, and put me on hormone shots. And so it's like every single day you take a shot. And I got pregnant. And then I was on progesterone during that pregnancy too. Had a terrible delivery. And when I left the hospital, they had me stay for like 3 days. And when I left the hospital, I was a big girl anyway, always have been a big girl. I was 267 pounds when I graduated high school. I'm 5'9", so I'm just a big person, you
I
know?
didn't look bad on the recording, but I look fuzzy. Not that I want you to see my wrinkles, but
Oh,
there we go.
that's okay. Um, so anyway, I left the hospital with stage 3 lipedema, nodules, swelling, everything.
Oh,
Yeah,
Susan.
I was 28 years old. So I went from 28 until about age 47 with I stay up to date on my doctor stuff. I had a miscarriage after that, another pregnancy
Mhm.
after that. So I, was seeing the gynecologist regularly, and I had had lap band twice and lost. I my highest weight I was 367 and I got down to 194 on the lap band, and then my lap band
Good for
blew out.
you.
Yeah, well, good for me, but my lap band blew out my esophagus, and so they replaced it with a lower pressure band. This is all just kind of backstory, but so then I got
No,
off the.
it's so relevant though. It's so
Yeah,
relevant.
it is. It's a lot of the things, and that's why my voice kind of sounds grumbly now, is because I have damage in my esophagus from that lap band blowing me out. Like I was eating dinner at a restaurant and blood just starts running out of my nose. And like something had ruptured while I was eating refried beans. I'm just crazy. So anyway, they put a lower pressure band in, right? And then after I was able to start putting fluid in the band to make it smaller, it started doing it again. And they were like, "You can't use your lap band anymore." So I still have a lap band in my stomach that can't do anything, except the doctor at the time, he said, "Hey, when I come in to replace your lap band, I want to try this experimental thing where I sew your stomach up in a whole bunch of different ways called an I-band revision." And I was like, "Well, whatever. You should not let people experiment on your body." So now, like, I can eat a regular meal and then 30 minutes later I get sick because all of a sudden it's getting in all those folds that are built into my stomach. So I mean, like, all the things for weight loss, I've done them all, right? So anyway, I was taking my Girl Scouts to New York City, fast forward, right, about 20 years, and my I was having problems with my foot was just killing me. And so I go to a podiatrist and she says, "You've got something, I don't know, tendonitis or something like that. You need to have a foot brace measured. Your calves and ankle are too big." My ankle was about 14 inches at the time. "I'm going to have to send you to a brace specialist and she's going to custom make you a brace
Okay.
for your foot," right? So at this time, I've already started kind of doing stuff that I was like looking for compression, but I didn't know the word. And so I was wearing like
Yeah.
control top pantyhose
You're
and
thinking probably more support than,
yes, like
yeah.
just kind of smooth me out under my clothes. And I was also already into like wearing maxi dresses and stuff to hide my legs because they had been bad for all these years, right? So I go to the brace specialist, I sit down, I pull up one side of my dress and she goes, "Who's treating you for your lymphedema?" And I said, "Never heard the word." After all this time, years of medical care and
Wow.
stuff. And
Yeah.
I had even like joined multiple gyms and talked to different trainers and stuff about what can I do to reduce the size of my legs. And they're like, their targeted exercise doesn't really work like that. You know, like everybody, they're just like, no,
No.
it's not going to work. I went to a plastic surgeon in Oklahoma City here to see if he would do surgery on my legs to just make them look more normal. And I didn't know what I had before all this happened. And he said, "I can't work on you. Your BMI is too heavy. I'm not interested in working on you at all," which is funny. And I'm an open book. I'm a really open book. I hate to tell you this, but another plastic surgeon here in town, when I had lost all that weight and I was at my bottom, I
Mhm.
went to him for a breast augmentation and he was more than happy to do it for me. You know what I mean? I'll take your
Right.
$5. So anyway, so I hear this word lymphedema, and so I go home and I take the trip. I do fine. I go home and I start Googling like crazy lymphedema, 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 and I uploaded pictures to some Facebook group of my legs, and there was a lady named Lenny Harden, and her picture is inside the original Lipedema Foundation brochure. And
Okay.
she is the person who shared pictures of her legs, and they were like, "You have lipedema." And that's the first time I heard the word lipedema after years of trying to figure out what the heck is wrong. And I actually thought I had cancer in my legs because I have these lumps, like, and they've come back since I've had surgery, but they're the ones inside my knees are about the size of golf balls. And you can like, I'm palpating one right now. I'm going to pull my hand up and show you how big the palpation is.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good size, that, you know, between the thumb and finger. So anyway,
And without knowing, like I can't imagine the moment when she said, like you were probably just like,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, and to see pictures of her legs is amazing. And so then now I've got this word, and I mean, within a couple of months, I switched my insurance company because I was a federal employee at the time, and you know, we could switch insurance every year.
Okay.
I researched to find what company would cover lipedema
Cover.
treatment, and I went to Aetna.
Smart.
Yep. And so within a few months, I was laying on the table in Dr. Schwartz's office having surgery. And this is what I will say about that experience. The surgery helped me. It helped with pain because my legs were starting to really, really ache at night, and my calves were so big and really extremely fibrotic. They were starting to do this thing like if this is my leg and this is the right side and this is the left side, the inside of that leg was like a flap of skin that would move like its own beast, right? It was just like really solid and stuff. And the Dr. Schwartz at the time told me, "Don't worry about what you're eating." He said, "As
Yeah.
far as I'm concerned, go eat brownies." So there was no nutritional um,
Guidance.
support or guidance or anything. And he was still young and growing too. And now he has a more comprehensive program. So I'll give him that. But so I just kept eating what I was eating. At that time, I had been vegetarian, full on vegetarian for 5 years, trying to get my legs to go down. And so when I
Because
went in,
that's what society would lead you to look into. For
yes,
sure.
yeah, because I had read a book called How Not to Die, and that the whole takeaway from that book is whole food plant based living, right, is what's going to save your life and stuff. And so I think, well, maybe it's going to help me with my legs. My
Yeah.
inflammation did not go down at all during that time. So anyway, I go into surgery, all three of my surgeries, anemic before I even step in the door, right? And whenever I leave surgery, I start having problems because there's a lot of blood loss involved. And he took out 16 liters in my first surgery, which was quite a bit. But again, I'm a big girl, right? And I did fine, other than the fatigue was just off the charts. So now, and of course, I mean, you follow me. You know, I swim. I use
Yeah.
my feet are on the vibration plate right now. I wear compression. I do all the things. And even so now I've hit perimenopause. Please just come on already, right? But so I had one round of surgeries on my arms. I'm going to show you. They've grown back. And now they're growing back in this weird spot right here. And then, of course, they've grown back down here too. So now I don't wear compression on my arms. And I will tell you the reason is because they make me sweat so much. And it's not just like, oh, I'm uncomfortable. It's like you look like you got out of a bathtub type sweating. Like I can't be in public when I'm sweating that level of sweat. I don't know why, but that's just what happens. So I
I
don't wear
don't,
compression.
that's not, I wouldn't say it's common, but it's certainly not uncommon. I've had that conversation. And some have the same issues with the legs. It's a layer of insulation,
Hmm.
right?
It is. And so I wear compression on my legs and, I do all the things, but they've grown back. And so I have lipedema in a weird spot too. Like I can almost show you on the camera. You can almost see the size of some of the fat cells in my arm. And I just thought that's what fat felt like, right? I have it in my mouth.
Yeah.
And like I have chunks that are the size of peas all in my mouth. And I just thought that's what humans felt like. I didn't know, you know.
What, why would you, right? That's your most daily reference.
My own
Yeah.
lived experience, right? So anyway, it is a bummer that the ones on the medial fat pads are really full of nodules again. So what I'm going to do is, and we all are learning this menopause stuff as we go, right? So you have to have a missed period for 12 months before they declare that you're in menopause, right? So once that happens, then I will go talk to Dr. Wright about having, because Dr. Wright's on the board of directors for the American Lipedema Association with me, right? Anyway, about having him do some surgery to remove it. And in the meantime, Dr. Wright is one of the doctors who has a BMI limit, and I am like half a point away under his BMI limit. And so behind the scenes, we're kind of working like, okay,
Okay.
this is what you need to be working on. And the sugar reduction is a big one for me because I am
Okay.
a straight up sugar addict. I mean, I won't lie about my food. But Rob and I, my husband, we went on a big, long, massive cruise in March from Europe across,
Oh, nice.
and during that time, like we ate desserts like maniacs, and then we also ate a 13-pound croissant too. But that's a whole different story. Anyway,
Another interview sounds like.
right, right. At the end of that trip, we were like, okay, we have to rein it in. And so we haven't eaten sugar at all since we came back on April the 1st. And then, I mean, like the only sugar I've had is I had a cupcake on Easter, and that's it. But day to day, and I do use one of the GLP drugs, right? Which I can't say the name because I don't want to get you a hit or whatever, but I do use one. And I think this is the only time in my life where I have tried to make any kind of a change in the way I eat, besides going vegetarian, which wasn't hard for me at all. I really enjoy that because I could still eat sugar, right?
Mhm.
Where I'm not like thinking about it all the time and wanting to cheat and this and that. And in fact, I gave my husband a Lunchable the other day, and it comes with like two cookies in it. And he's like, I don't want these. I put them in a baggie, and I've had them in my office now for a couple of weeks. And I finally, yesterday, I threw them in the trash. I'm like, I don't care, you know? So, but it's not so, the inflammation in my legs has changed, and my weight in general has not changed. And I've been on that drug now for more than a year. But
Good.
my legs don't hurt at night, and I'm not thinking about ding dongs all day. Well, I
Yeah,
shouldn't say that.
I know what
I'm
you mean.
thinking about Oreos all day.
Yeah, that's from my time. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so I'll be 52 in 20 days. Yeah.
I'll be
So
53 in October.
yeah,
So
yeah.
we're, as women, we're very much at a similar stage in our life. Um, I didn't know what fatigue was until I hit menopause. Everybody kind of sees me as the Energizer Bunny, but um, so you've got a bit of a unique, like you've seen a couple of very well known lipedema surgeon specialist types in the group, but in very different levels of experience in their own career.
Hmm.
Really?
Hmm.
Okay. So you would go see right for the, and what would you have done this time? Like or are you just talking at this point?
Well, okay, so I need knee replacements, and my knees are extremely hypermobile. I'm talking to the point now where if I like I was taking a walk the other day. So I'm doing this 30-day lipedema awareness month challenge where
Mm-hmm.
I have to exercise 30 minutes a day and I have to do 3 times a week resistance outside of the water is the thing. So I'll swimming counts for my my 30 minutes or whatever. But it was late one night and I was about to go to bed and miss my challenge. So I take a walk and I'm like walking and I stepped off of a curb. So there's just a moment where my leg is not touching the ground and it's just kind of hanging as I'm going down the step. It dislocated when I'm half a mile away from the house. And it's such a weird thing because it's like it just wants to collapse, right? So I'm
Yeah.
really, really hypermobile. And when I swim, I've always used this word. I didn't know that there was Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and all that stuff. I would just describe it as, oh, my knee flipped inside out. That's the way I would phrase it, right?
Yeah.
So that happening, and every time I dislocate, it's doing more and more damage to my knees on top of arthritis
Yeah.
and all that stuff. So my goal is to get myself in the best shape possible so that I can go get my knees replaced. What would be beautiful though? And I'm going to just make a reference to this. I listen to the Mel Robbins podcast pretty faithfully when I'm swimming, and she had a doctor on named Dr. Vonda Wright the other day, and
Mm-hmm.
she is an orthopedic surgeon, and she was like, I can prevent you from having to have knee replacement surgery if you exercise every day. And her whole thing is, you can't out excuse me, like that you have time to exercise, you know.
Yeah.
And she's like, mobility is medicine. If you movement is medicine is what she says. And she's like, get your butt up, and if even if it's walking around the dinner table until you're fatigued, get up and do something, you
Yeah.
know. And so that would be, I mean, that would be a beautiful thing, is to get that stuff off the medial part of my knees, because it's impacting my gait. And once your gait is screwed up because your legs are pushed out, now your hips start slipping out of place.
It's the
You
whole compensation factor,
It
right?
is. Yeah. And that's exactly what's happening to me because those fat pads grew back. So I've got to get that done. And honest to God, I wear tank tops all the time. I think every woman has pretty shoulders. It doesn't matter what's from here down. I really don't want my arms to look like this. I mean, it's totally cosmetic. They don't hurt, whatever.
I get
But
it. I
I
get
will
it.
get my arms done again, and I'll probably end up having to get a lift when it's done. But the most important part is mobility. I mean, really, when it comes down to it, you can put on a shirt. You know, I do not want to be stuck in a wheelchair. Like my mom uses a scooter. She has lipedema also. I don't want to. I want to travel until the day I die. So yeah,
Good for, well, I of course specialize to a degree in the mobility piece. And depending on where your surgery is, I guess part of the reason this works so well for me, and I'm sure the issues with my knee are not as extensive. I'm not dealing with some of the other underlying factors that many in my community are. But the whole description you gave about your knee folding inside out, mine did that, and it would lock up for like 2 to 3 days at a time. I remember that the last time before I finally went and had somebody look at it, I was kneeling in the tent, and my hubby and I went camping May long weekend, which is just the stupidest thing to do in the country of Canada because you usually wake up with snow, but it's the first long weekend, so we're out there and I'm kneeling down in the tent and I'm putting our foamy mattresses in. And I remember standing up and my knee wouldn't unbend. And it was like 3 days of like this.
yeah,
Fast forward 23 years, my bad knee is kind of my good knee now. And my good knee, because if I have an issue, it's always the opposite side, the sciatic, the neck. We are both, I guess, digital creators to a degree. So, it's this the prolonged sitting. And it's interesting what you say about movement. I wish the world was more well versed on, we are an animal, and when I used to work at trade shows, we used to like poop in the forest and squat by the campfire, and people always used to be marveled that I can squat all the way to the ground, touch my bum on the ground, and my feet remain flat. I don't come up on the toes. And it's just one of those, maybe I'm hypermobile, but I couldn't do any of these. I was always very athletic. I never exercised for purpose. I'm German. I have a sugar fetish as well, but I like bread and butter and, like dips and sauces on top of it. Um, but since I got into the plates, is it because I stuck with them and used them regularly, or is it because I changed my food? And I'm kind of like you. Food is one of my few pleasures. I don't like hating my food. It's my, sometimes when it's just me in the car and I'm at Dollarama, I'll grab that chocolate bar and I'll eat it before I get home so nobody else. I was that
Mhm.
person my whole life. I would come home from school at 3:30 and there'd be pierogies and bacon and cabbage rolls and Oma would dish. And if you didn't eat it all, you didn't like her cooking. My Oma lived
Mhm.
with us our whole life. So
Mhm.
I was at my biggest, I was about 210, 215, and a lot of people look at I'm about 125 these days.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and the only effort I've put forth is 20 years of consistency.
Wow.
So the food for me, like I'm starting to see dehydration. I don't have the sparkle. There's other things that my body, I go in phases. But it's the consistency of this. That's the only thing I can attribute to the weight loss to.
Mhm.
The knee, I help not only myself, but so many people like you with just makes sense, like on the machines, whether you're using a rebounder. Some of the things I used to do thinking I was preparing for this damn surgery, you know to straight, the more you can do before you go under the knife, the better the recovery is going to be.
Mhm.
um Not related to the lipedema community, but I mentioned before we kind of got started, when I rambled, go figure. I support a lot of pediatric post-surgery. It's an intricate spine surgery called selective dorsal rhizotomy, where they go
Mm.
in and there are nerves that are attached and reattached. Kids with cerebral palsy very commonly can't get their foot straight. The back of the legs are so tight, you can't straighten your legs.
Mm.
If a child has been using a vibration plate prior to this surgery, they can resume use within 2 months. If they
Wow.
are just starting the plate post surgery, they got to wait 3.
Huh.
And what was happening is, so many, like in our groups, so many of my families were like, well, little Tommy misses it, like it was helping him poop, or they were using it for other reasons. And I finally kept just saying to the neurosurgeons, like, I know 3 months, but isn't there, everybody recovers a little different. And I just started noticing my families that knew how to use the machine, they weren't scared of it. Can't I just sit him and put his feet on it like Debbie does? And then it started, well, I guess we can modify, using a vibration machine, going to the gym, going to the pool, doesn't mean everybody is using or doing in the exact same way. So
Mhm.
with your bad knees, even while you're sitting, we should do a separate coaching session. That one's going to be on the house.
Good.
But there's so many things that I was doing when I think back and got into this and was really clueless at the time, using devices that are way scarier and way meaner than I am now. And I'd do little things like put balls between my legs, while I'm sitting, or, maybe I'd put my newborn, because I had my daughter and trained through my whole time. I'd put her on my knee while I'm on the machine and bounce her, you know,
Mm.
or all these little, I wasn't doing them purposefully to exercise my knee, but as I finally got a surgery date, I don't know, 22, 28 months into it, I'm like, well, I'm down about 40 pounds, and it hurts sometimes, but it doesn't lock. And maybe I'll just wait a bit, and here it is 20 years later. And I'm not saying I don't need to get a knee replacement,
Mhm.
but I do. The less I do this, the more the arthritis, the swelling. So first thing in the morning, if I'm a really good girl, I come down the stairs and I hear this, your knees in the morning when you try using them, that sound,
Yeah.
popcorn. If I do a little, and usually, I might just be, checking in and who's hunting me on Facebook, and my feet are on it or I'm standing on it, and then the popcorn goes away. So maybe I can't physically move my muscles to the point that my knees need to get stronger. That's what this is doing for you. So there's lots of ways depending on you, your uniqueness, what you can do. what I find with the lipedema community, the exact same issue with my cerebral palsy community. Most of them have prolapsed ankles and knees, and some of them are completely paralyzed. So how do
Yeah.
I strengthen? And the hips are like 30-40% out, and I couldn't find any way for my mom at home to stand this kid on the machine and keep those legs apart. So we started putting this ball between the legs. And all these doctors and well, where's the protocol? Where's the study for that? There isn't. It's just me and moms playing it, because you get to a point in the self-care, whether it's cerebral palsy, lipedema, that you're the only one that's going to do it. And it's the consistency, these little home machines that I've been working with now 10, 15 years, they're accessible, they're affordable. And
Mhm.
even if you're just using them sitting at your desk, it's better than not having used them.
Oh
You
yeah,
know what I
they
mean?
feel
You're gonna get
good.
some benefits. So there's so many things I can help you with, and we'll do that in a separate call. I really wish Durkheim's would get some attention. I wish lipedema and Durkheim's were the same thing. Everything
Mhm.
you're describing to me, these nodules, who knows? Like I wonder sometimes, because there is, I'd say probably 30%, 25 in my group have both. And nobody's talking about that,
Yeah.
right?
I'll
So,
tell you. I will tell you this, that whenever I went to fat disorders, not this year, but last year, that was when they were starting to do that research,
oh, good. Did you get in on that?
I did. And so the experience with the research was glorious.
Yep.
And you have to be really body confident to be able to do it. I'm going to say, I'll just tell you my whole experience, right? So you go into a room and it's you and two people. So there's like either a nurse practitioner or a physician. And I think Dr. Herbst was doing some of the exams. I was examined by a nurse practitioner, and she starts
Cool.
just like Dr. Herbst says, she starts at the head to feel for lipomas. And I had a very large pilar cyst that I thought for a long time was a lipoma, in fact. And so I have lipomas here, and a couple in my back that don't hurt. And Durkheim's is supposed to be painful lipomas, right? But
Sometimes,
yeah, okay.
sometimes.
So not everybody. Okay, so then you go down my body, and there are a couple in my belly, and then my legs are just full of them. But then when the practitioner was feeling, she was doing the stimmer sign test, right?
Okay.
And she goes, "You have some lipomas in your feet." And she said, "I'm on the verge of diagnosing you with Durkheim's." And this is post-surgery, by the way, right?
Interesting.
And then she's like, "I'm gonna not, but you're on the verge of being a Durkheim's patient." So anyway, they do a heat scan with an iPad
Mhm.
to show where you're got the cool spots. And then there's another room where they're scanning you, and so like literally taking images. And it was somebody from one of the compression companies that was doing this. And so they have a tool that they scan you for, and then at the end of it, they're kind of giving you a pitch for their custom fit compression too,
Of course.
which was they have to do that to get them there, right? The third room though was the photography room, which I do that all the time. I don't do any kind of photography that I'm just gonna this is gonna make somebody mad, and I don't care if you put it in there, that denigrates myself. So
Yep.
you're never gonna see a lingerie pic of me. You're never gonna see one of those butts in the air pictures that people do, and they put the word lipedema on there, and then they get all the creepy guys. Um,
And they wonder why. Yeah.
Right, but you're gonna see pictures of me in bathing suits, pictures of my legs, because
Yeah.
I want people to there's lots of reasons for it, but it helped me, and that's why I do it. I pay it forward for other people. It helps people to recognize lipedema, and also people to not be afraid to go to the beach in a bathing suit, right? Like, "Oh, she's doing it and she's having a freaking blast. I should go
Yeah.
back and live my life too," right? So anyway, that was the experience of that whole
Good for you.
process. Yeah. Yeah, but so when I was in there, they pay a professional photographer to come in for the day, and they tell you black underwear, black bra, right? And I'm like, "So can I do some poses that I want to do for my page or whatever?" And they're like, "Yeah." So I did all the ones, and I'm in one of the Lipedema Foundation posts that I've seen recently. Of course, you recognize your own body and stuff, but they gave me a few professional photographs that I could use of myself, and I've never posted them because it's a bra and panty shot, and it's not really my thing, you know?
But you'll
So,
be glad you have them.
yeah.
Whether that's for your own it's how often do we go pay to get professional photos done nowadays, unless you're in that line of work, let alone something that you can, that's part of your documentation.
Yeah,
right?
it really is. And like I pay a photographer that she used to be in my Girl Scout troop. She just happens to be like an Instagrammer and a professional photographer. And she like we just did a session this last week showing my new line of calf boots for the fall, right? Um and I'll tell you a dumb story about that just because it's entertaining. I brought two boots that don't match. I brought a boot with a stacked heel and a boot with a flat heel like a moon boot. And I got there and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And she's like, "I can work with it." And so she had me walk in certain ways and cross my legs in certain ways so you could only see the stacked heel boot. But here's me walking down my hometown, Yukon, Oklahoma, clump, 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 clump.
It was awesome on that knee having the 2 inch difference all day, right?
Right, right. So anyway,
That's
I have a
awesome.
question for you about my so I use a LifePro waiver. It's a blue model because
Yep.
it's got the 330-pound weight capacity, and my weight right now is 334 this morning. So I'm weighing every day as part of my challenge, right? I've never stood on that LifePro. It's under my desk, and I'm not kidding you when I tell you I probably hit pause. I start on it with my big toe is how I start it 30 times a day. I run it on a level 87 30 times a day. It feels so good. And I know I'm addicted to it at this point. It's like if I'm sitting at my desk and I'm not recording a podcast or doing whatever, that little booger's on. Oh, no, I'll buy a new one if I break it. That's how I feel about it. I'm afraid of hurting my knees.
So the weight capacity thing, these companies are a little smarter. It's probably if you knew what I did sometimes because of what budget constraints are, like I
Mm.
have put entire wheelchairs on top of these things with kids, with weights. You know what? You have to do lots of regular use and abuse for it to be a problem, and it'll start squeaking and make. So I've never had a machine in my 20 years collapse under user weight. Ever. Ever, ever, ever.
Yeah, one day mine will burn up. It will catch on fire because I use it so much. And
Did
I
you
think we talked to you about how mine was starting to sound like an old truck.
did you register your lifetime warranty?
There's a lifetime warranty? Probably not. I bought it on Amazon, so I'll go look because I'm all about that. I did that. You can cut this out. I don't care if you did. I did that for Bellicon, and I don't. I'll just tell you because I think, and you can share this with people. I talk about it in the podcast and stuff quite a bit. I'm not monetized on YouTube, and although I have enough subscribers, um, I am monetized on Facebook. It happened, and I didn't even know. This is stupid. I don't do it for the money. I got a deposit the other day from Facebook, and then I get an email that says because I'm doing daily content right now, right?
Mhm.
You've been creating such quality content that we've increased your broadcasting or something. I don't know. And I was like, oh, I guess I really am monetized on Facebook. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
But I do have affiliate marketing links that I use so rarely that I might make $10 or $15 a month, and I might not. And just to share with you too, because I think people are interested in like the real, I'm pretty real about everything. So I have like 9 books about lipedema out, but I also have 27 other books that I've written under a pen name, and a lot of them are AI generated books. So my lipedema books are written by an actual human, and they're all pictures of me. So you can't generate a picture, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like my coffee table books, I did this last year for Awareness Month. I sat down with a blank Microsoft Word document and I went from Word document to hitting publish on Amazon, and it took 4 hours, and I did a time lapse of making this book or whatever. I make well less than $100 a month on all of those books combined, right? And I have
Yeah.
one book that I'm not going to tell you what it is because I don't want people knowing my pen name. That is a dumb journal. Let's just leave it. It's a content-free book. It just has lines in it.
Okay.
I make more money off of that stupid book than I do all of the books like that aquatherapy book. I put my heart and soul into that book. I did all this research and
I
you know what
know.
I mean? So anyway, there's no money to be made in this part of it unless you're like somebody with 1 million subscribers, you know. Well,
If
okay,
that
so
makes
this is
sense.
going to be my pep talk. First of all, this is what I've learned in lipedema, and I just told this. So Pell Ginger Pear, right, Kara?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So she's now on the board of the American Lipedema Association. She's a social media genius. I have learned
Yeah.
so much from her. She's only been doing it for like a month or something and really helping us like with the
Yeah.
rebrand and
It's
giving
not that
me
we want to be there, but you got to be. in
You gotta
today's
be.
world.
You gotta be. Yeah. And she's even been talking to me about Legs Like Mine, which I did a rebrand a couple years ago. I paid a social media company to come in and help me when I was thinking, okay, I'm going to start this shoe company and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And they helped me that way. But now Kara's been kind of like looking at my stuff and she's like, okay, here's, how to be more consistent on YouTube and use the right sizes and blah, blah, blah. And it's just stuff that
Yeah.
I subscribe to this two things. One, there are no rules. Like I worked for the government for 28 years and there was a rule about everything. And now that I'm here for myself, I don't have to answer to anybody. And there is no one in the world who controls lipedema or the only thing that controls you as an influencer is, am I going to get sued? I have insurance. I do have insurance. Am I going to get sued? I put caveats on all my books and stuff like that too. Like, hey, the typical talk to your doctor, blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
But this is what I think too. There's such a great, like, you're actually filling a significant gap in the lipedema information out there. And they're all the time. And I know you watch some of the groups, because
Yeah.
I see, but it's like people on these other groups, they're like, well, have you heard about a vibration plate? And I'm always like, hey, go to Debbie's group. Like there's a whole group for that. And she has this amazing information at the beginning that tells you some stuff about how to use your plate or whatever. But I will say, so just this, I still do. I mean, I do a little bit of TikTok. I'm trying to pick up the TikTok because it seems like there's an unmet need there. I just started on Blue Sky within the last couple of months. And
Oh, I
so
don't. What's Blue Sky?
it's like a Twitter.
Okay.
It's not politically motivated in any way at all either. I still do Twitter, but I get so little engagement from people on Twitter that I'm only doing it because I feel like I have to, I
I
still
understand.
do Pinterest, YouTube, Twitter, my webpage,
What
Facebook,
about Insta?
Oh, totally. I do Instagram a
I
lot. And
don't, and everybody says I'm crazy, but
yeah.
I don't. For me, I was doing a little TikTok.
Hmm.
But as a one woman show with the size I've grown to, I don't know that I could take more messages elsewhere. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't. So I'm just going to tell you on Instagram, I do not answer direct messages. And it's very rare for me to even open my messages in Instagram because and again, the kind of pictures I do, they're not sexy pictures at all. I get creepy guys sending me eggplants and pictures that I don't
Nice.
want. And I mean, I grew up under a rock. I'm in Oklahoma, right? The first time I started getting eggplants, asked my husband, who's like big on social media and stuff, and why are people sending me eggplants? And he's like, girl. Well, then they started sending me more than eggplants, so I don't even open Instagram messages.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna to relay this from Patty Cornute, who founded Lipedema Fitness, passed away a
Yeah.
couple months ago, right? Her family did not know how much she was doing for support of her people, her groups. She has two groups, a private one and a public one, and they had grown incredibly large. And it was really taken on a huge toll of her life. And none of us knew this until we all felt like we were special to Patty. Like she was helping us through our problem. And Patty and I were research buddies. So every day
Mhm.
we go to PubMed, we look, and we would call each other and talk about it because we were both like sort of nerdy that way.
That's
And
good. That's good.
it is really good. But she was also taking calls from 10, 15, 20 other people a day, supporting people on their fitness journey. And no one knew that she was doing that much. And I don't know if she was monetized or not. It doesn't matter. It was really taking a big toll on her family life.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting because you don't know how much people who are creators, like, again, we talked about how much I make and don't make. It's if you knew what I charge an hour for consulting, you would know that I don't make in a month everything I'm doing, books, podcasts, blah, 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 in total for what I make 1 hour consulting. And I spend probably 6 hours a day at this computer doing lipedema awareness stuff every day.
Yeah, I wish I could get my doctor rate of 99 an hour for my consultation,
Right.
4 or 5 hours a day.
Oh,
My $20 for a call, specials but extended. You know, I get a lot of calls. Patty and I are of a similar nature, and I think sometimes we're just so my impression, I spoke with Patty a few times, and I actually introduced her to LifePro as well. And
Mm,
my impression of her, I guess I did probably meet her at Dallas when they were doing the first round of research. But
mhm,
my impression was, part of how she managed and coped with hers was through helping others.
yeah,
It's kind of the life of an advocate, if you will, and you have that, part of your team. And just the last 4 or 5 years, that virtual connection that we've made with people, it's almost more common than going for a cup of coffee, maybe how we used to, if you will.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's been good because it's allowed us to connect in that level. And there's just so many in this community that don't have a diagnosis, or just, discovering, what it is that they may be dealing with simply through the information uh, those in the know are sharing. And that's kind of why you get. I probably, like, some days it's 40, 50 messages when I get up in the morning,
Mm,
and that's just Facebook. I didn't even, just last week I got a message through my website, and I'm like,
mm,
I can get messages through my website since when? Which is great, but it's not as interactive. And I'm usually living on Facebook doing comments or a live with you, with a supplier or something. So it's
mm,
it's one place, and I'm not sophisticated enough to have a streaming service where I'm going everywhere. But it's there's so many sources of, we could talk about that too. I think for some it's a little overwhelming. Like, there is no one best source. Just like exercises, as Patty preached, it's not a matter of what you're doing as long as you're doing something. That was
mhm,
kind of her, do something every day. And for many people, it's, do what you can. Don't measure yourself against me or Susan, as far as, I didn't start this way. It's been 20 years of figuring out what worked for me, for my knee, for my lifestyle. And
mhm,
what I do know is that things are faster now. The rate of information, the amount of information. There's all kinds of studies about these things, but I used to spend a lot of time specifically looking at different, not just vibration plate research, but activity, gravity, some of the things that are probably more encompassing of, as far as the benefits that a machine creates. But there's just so many things coming from so many directions now. And because I advocate for the lipedema, the Durkheim's community, there's other things of interest. So red light, do you know how many studies there are on red light? Oh my
mm,
goodness. And infrared. And um the big message is switch gears. You've gone through all these surgeries, and things are growing back. So
yep,
I too would be reluctant about using the same path. I'd be, I think probably your biggest asset, and maybe you don't even realize this, is you're curious. Your
mhm,
curiosity is science. It's discovery.
oh,
It's, and when we stop losing our curiosity, we stop caring too, right? So
yeah,
I was cruising through a couple of your blog articles just to be a little bit more up to speed. I haven't read the last few, but it's, you
mhm,
know, um, you've always been in my brain as legs like mine. Like, it's just an easy, everything's lipedema this or lipedema that, lipedema
mhm,
that. And what I really like about the name of that you've chosen is, until you know what you have, there's a lot of people out there that don't know how to search on the internet because they don't know what lipedema is.
mhm,
So, but I know her legs look like mine. So
mhm.
to me, I just thought that was, brilliant. And you've always been in my mind because of that,
Thank
as
you.
opposed to the lipedema legs, or, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Right. And then you get into the whole, how do you spell it? They can tell where you're from, just whether that O's there or not. Right?
That's
I always
exactly.
tease Barry Ad for the Warriors about that. And same
So
with
I,
me. I probably the biggest complaint I actually take in my group is the name of it.
yeah,
Why, it's offensive to me to call it fat disorders. Well, then talk to FDRS first of all before you complain to me. But
right.
the reason I kind of went with that name is at the time, as I was understanding and having, some of the early adopters of me, Linda Ann, the way that it was described to me was painful fat or misshapen fat. And, when you're on the internet searching, trying to figure out desperately what it is that you're dealing with, it's more
Mhm.
synonymous with the type of terms. So I
Yeah.
was more, I want to get found, then I can choke you with all the information and the resources. But if your name is so specific, I think it downplays those of you that don't yet have the lingo to find themselves in the right groups. You know, and
And
I'm
that's
getting to the
yeah.
point where I have women, maybe it's just because of the size of the group, but they're coming there and finding out. They come there with a vibration plate. You know, they've seen me elsewhere, and I've been doing all the right things. Maybe I'm using the wrong setting just to find out, oh, I think I have Durkheim's, or
Yeah.
oh, I think I have lipedema, just because they're on a vibration plate page.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it's coming. There's something. I see the horizon for lipedema broadening. I really hope so, anyways.
I agree.
And
It's got
Durkheim's and everything else.
yeah, and that's why I say to people, that there's some influencers who feel like there is a sense of competition with each other, and like, I mean, you have to set your boundaries. Like, you're like, hey, don't link to your affiliate market. That's a good boundary, right? But there are also things like, hey, you're sharing your story, I'm sharing my story, we're not the same people. I have a different audience than, say, like Allison Jacobs, who's the dancer, right?
Mhm.
She's younger than me, and I definitely came from the executive world. You know what I mean? I think that I right now, the people who I know the people who follow me right now are women in their 50s and 60s, because that's who they relate to, right? I don't look at any influencer as a competitor at all, because we need more people telling their story. We need more people writing books. I will help anybody who's writing a lipedema book with the publishing process, because
Mhm.
I can do that like this now, right? Because I just whip them out. And like, I've done that a couple times. Like, somebody will call me up and say, hey, I want to write a lipedema book. Do you mind telling me how you got from piece of paper to it's on Amazon, right? And I will spend an hour with them, no charge, and just walk them through the whole process and show them how I do it, because we need more people telling the story. Imagine if there was only one person sharing lipedema information.
You'd be
Like,
biased. You'd sound biased just by because you're the only one talking about it.
right. And no one would ever find it, right? So yeah, we have a lot of people who are what I call, like, in my head I see this pyramid of influence, and it's like people who are preaching to each other in the lipedema world. And that area seems to be growing a ton, right? Like,
Yes.
oh, I just found out I have it. Let me tell you what I do. Okay, there are a million people doing that, but then there are people who are like, the American Lipedema Association, I'll say that again, they're sort of more at the top. Like, we're not advocating down to people, if that makes sense, like to people who
Yep.
are lymphedema patients. We're going out to Congress and biomed companies, and you know what I mean?
There's a lot of layers getting from here to treatment. And
Yes.
I think your perspective, you outlined it perfectly, whether the perspective also, you can't be completely fluent and have enough hours in the day to be effective at all levels. You need to break it
Right.
into smaller, more digestible pieces, for
Yeah.
sure.
And advocacy is for us is up and out. Like,
Yeah.
so we need more people telling their story. And I really would love to have this included in your show. Is like, if you're thinking about doing a podcast or a book or a YouTube channel or Instagram, whatever it is, right? Do it. Do it for yourself. Do it for other people, because you're going to be people like me who, if I hadn't gone to a Facebook page and posted my picture and asked questions and seen that picture of Lenny Harden, right? I would not know what's wrong with me now. And great. Yeah, I've had treatment. Great. Yeah, I wear compression and I do all the things. 50%, 51% of it is me knowing that I am not a freak, that
Yeah.
there is nothing wrong with me as far as humanity is concerned. I'm like 17 million women in the United States, who knows how many in Canada, right?
You're not alone.
That emotional knowledge is worth way more than any treatment I have had to my physical body.
And for all the talk about mental health nowadays, our mental health can manifest physical problems.
Yeah.
Where's all this bloody inflammation coming from? Maybe a little bit of the stress, maybe a little bit of the shaming, maybe a little bit of the gaslighting. Like, there's so many, it's amazing what our body actually does recover from some days.
Yeah.
And there's always more than one way to manage these things, you know.
Yeah.
And it's not always whiskey and a cigar.
No,
But
but it helps.
no, it's
I'll end our time with this. I just want to give a shout out to my provider. My provider, I've had her for 10 or so years now. has worked with me from soup to nuts on this whole thing. So I walk in
Awesome.
after I mean, we had actually talked about going vegetarian to try to slim down my legs, right? When I walk in with her and I'm like, it's lipedema and here's the information on it. And I'm already scheduled. I've got the diagnosis now. I'm scheduled for surgery and I need you to help me with my pre-op stuff and getting
Yep.
me, set up with the CLT and stuff like that. She was like, "Yep." And she looked it up and she looked at the diagnostic criteria while we were in the room and she was like, "Yeah, this is what you have." And so she ordered all the tests. She helped me with the monitoring and stuff. And now, and this is the part that makes me happy. I have other patients who have it. I know I have other patients who have it, you know, and that changed the trajectory of the way she cares for every single person that shows up now with those symptoms. So,
Look at the impact you have had
mm,
just through your own advocacy,
yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely. And believe me when I tell you, it's a whole different story if you haven't watched any of my early podcasts where I talk about the injuries, mental injuries I received at work after having a 28-year career, very successful career, and the way it ended due to discrimination from my lipedema, right? And that's one of
I
the
think
things.
I did read. That sounds, I'm gonna have to go reread though. That
Yeah.
would have been a while ago.
Yeah, may sound familiar. I worked in a male-dominated industry in the government and ended up retiring on disability after getting a demotion for taking leave for CLT treatment and for surgery. And believe me when I tell you, they've been schooled. There's a
I bet you in the long run, that was a very empowering thing. I mean, killed you at the time emotionally, but you spoke with such confidence and satisfaction. Um, that's
yeah,
going to give others power. That's
oh,
really what it is, right?
yeah,
Now your tanks are full, and why do I kill myself 20 hours, a weekend sometimes? It's empowering and fills my tank if I can make things a little better for you,
sure,
and that's
absolutely.
what you're all about.
Right. And maybe the next person who needs to take leave because they had a flare up and had no idea what was going on with their body, they won't get a demotion because their boss thinks they're faking a medical condition, right?
That sounds like a good repost. You should repost that one on my blog. I'm glad that I flagged your post, and I do make exceptions. It's if you're posting about a vibration plate or something that's going to piss somebody else off in the group, before I have a chance to vet it. But I didn't really ask you yet if you do have time. Do you have any things coming up this month that you wanted to promote or that I can boost for you? Anything you wanted to
Yeah.
share?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think what I'm working on right now is I'm doing a Lipedema Awareness Month challenge
Hmm.
where I have 7 things that are personal to me, and it's in replacement of the Lipedema Triathlon, right? Because it's not
Okay.
happening this year. So, the challenge that I'm doing is I have to move 30 minutes a day and 3 times a week exercise or resistance exercise, drink 90 ounces of water a day, which for me, that's replacing Diet Pop. So, that's a
Okay.
good thing, right? I have to read 10 pages of a nonfiction item, not online for me. I'd like a tactile book, so 10 pages of a nonfiction book, right? I have to share one post of myself and tag groups that are outside of the lipedema community, just like we talked about. So I'm
Okay.
reaching out to the American Medical Association and da 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 da, right? So I have to do that, and then my on nutrition, because I've been through the ringer on nutrition. I have 2 things only: eat 100 grams of protein a day, which is very hard for me, right? And that came from my nutritionist, that goal, and
Okay.
to continue avoiding sweets, right? So that's a big one for me, is to stay on top of that because that is a known source of inflammation, right?
Yeah.
So all of these things, and I didn't cover all of them, but I'm doing this post and I've started the Legs Like Mine podcast. So I just posted episode 25 today. It's on Spotify, it's on iTunes, so anywhere you get your podcast, right? Most of the podcasts are short because what I'm doing is going into PubMed. I'm looking for new research articles every day. And then
Mhm.
basically what I do is I read it, I summarize the article and
Nice.
simplify it in human terms. And then I talk about it. And those are like 5 to 7, 8 minutes. So they're very
Yep.
short. So I'm doing a daily update on how I did on my challenge. And those sometimes are going into the 30-minute time zone. So those are good for listening to your commute. Again, there are other people doing lipedema podcasts, and
Mhm.
they're not my competitors. They are definitely, again, spreading the story. They're more fun to listen to. Mine, especially the medical research stuff. Um, they're not, that's not for everybody, but it's filling a gap for me personally where I could pick up the phone and call Patty and talk to her. Now I can just
Yeah.
talk to my listeners, you know? So
Yeah.
that's my latest project. I don't have any
Maybe
book.
that's the evolution, or this is simply, and and Patty's up there going, "You go, girl."
Right,
You know,
right. Yeah, she
do
really
you
made
want to
me.
post your challenge on my page?
Oh yeah, I would love to. Yeah.
I will say, I know there's been a lot of posts about Patty. There's been lots of sharing, and I do think, because her birthday was just the other day, of course, right? So
Yeah.
I think there is a void. Whether people participated or not, it was a reminder in people's minds, and somebody's got to fill that void.
Mhm.
I'm noticing I don't have that to share this year in
Yeah.
my group. I not everyone uses vibration plates, but they do need to keep moving. So I've always happily shared that the triathlon. And I do notice it's missing this year. So if you want to put up your challenge, it's still early in the month. Do a post today, because it'll be a few days before I get this, updated, and whatever works for you. I'm flexible. And
Yeah.
I
And
rambled way beyond, so thank you for your patience with that. You're gorgeous.
oh,
And this is long overdue. I thank you for being generous with your time with me today.
oh my gosh, thank you for having me. I mean, you do such a great thing in the community. You have way more followers than I do too, which is amazing, right? I mean, you've got a lot of
It's
followers,
just because everybody's using plates and everybody's too
right?
afraid to talk about it.
Right. But thank you so much for your time. I'm
Enjoy
gonna,
your weekend.
yeah, you too. I'm gonna go eat some cottage cheese.
I have cottage cheese with green onions on toast with butter.
Ooh,
It's like my German fave. I love it. Ooh,
I'm
now
gonna
I
try
want it
that.
too.
Yeah, I'm totally gonna try that. Have a good weekend. I'll see you later.
Thanks again.